Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? Doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
New BR changes are being introduced to War Thunder, and as per usual, there is a lot that could stand to be fixed. These changes aren't as bad as the ones from January, but they certainly are very odd. In the video talking about January's changes, I mainly talked about the M48A2, and how it was a really bad idea to put it at 6.7. This time I'll be taking a broader approach, going through the changes that are more egregious or positive. If you guys haven't already, I encourage you to read the table for yourself, and leave feedback in the discussion thread. Gaijin's devs are willing to listen to feedback, so make sure your voice is heard. I'd also like to hear what battle rating suggestions you guys have, so leave them down in the comments. You probably guessed by the title, but I'm not impressed by the changes this month. You would think that Gaijin would take this opportunity to decompress battle ratings, maybe introduce a few BR levels, but they're doing the opposite. Battle ratings are being squeezed even further. Take the T64A for example. It's going from 9.3 to 9.0. I didn't find myself struggling when playing it, though theoretically I would agree to a 9.0 battle rating, at least when you compare it to other vehicles in 9.0 BR range. It's not on quite the same level as the MBT-70 or XM1s. There's one big issue with this new BR, and that's the possibility that it could face 8.0s, which are at an incredible disadvantage in comparison. Something like the T95E1 just does not stand a chance against it. The T64A is being moved because while it can hold its own, its win rate is pretty bad. I think this has two main causes. One, both Germany and the US have incredibly strong lineups in that BR range. Two, a ton of new players just bought the T72 terms on sale, absolutely tanking win rates. I think moving it down might be more detrimental than positive. At 9.3, you can at least bring the T72A as a backup, but after the change, it will be the only 9.0 tank Russia has, meaning that if people want to line up, they'll have to bring 8.7s into 10.0 matches. The Yak Panthers going from 6.3 to 6.0 is an absolutely awful change. Back when Germany was my main tree, and I was still new to the game, I was able to do really well with them at 6.7. So not only are they incredibly strong at 6.3, but now they'll be broken at 6.0. Along the frontal arc, most of the things it'll face just will not be able to penetrate it. They'll either have to shoot the gun, or they can gamble on the machine gun port. Just to put things into perspective, the T20 Medium Tank, which is practically just a short Sherman, is now the same BR as the Yak Panther. I was going to say that the 2K going to 9.3 was a really bad decision too, since it's better than the MBT-70s in every way. Better reload rate, better penetration, better armor, better mobility, better turret traverse rate, and the same 20mm cannon. But now they're just giving it a new shell, which I don't really think was necessary, but I also don't think it'll be harmful. The 2K was already really good, so I don't see why they thought it was struggling. The only real downside was the lack of thermals. But let's take a break from the negatives and look at the positives. Many of you saw the HSTVL change, where it was moved to 10.3 but had its autoloader adjusted. A lot of you guys were asking for my opinion on it. Personally, I'm really happy with it. With the new change, it can access all 26 rounds immediately. You don't need to wait for the ready rack to replenish. I've been saying that Gaijin should fix it and up-tier it, and it looks like they're finally doing that. I was hoping that the reload rate and velocity would be fixed too, but maybe that will come at some point in the future. This actually wasn't one of my reports. It was filed by Signy, so all credit goes to her. I think it's a change that will satisfy everyone. 8.7s won't be bullied by it anymore, and fans of the vehicle will be happy it's a bit more true to life. And finally, after what, 5 years? The RU-251 is finally going to 7.0. It was miles better than every other 6.7 light tank, except for maybe the T114. I hope this means it'll be spammed a bit less. I was going to say that the Yak Panzer 4.5 going to 6.0 is a bad idea, but thankfully Gaijin seemed to have noticed that. I was going to note that the main thing holding it back is its awful stock grind, but they're addressing that by getting rid of stock APCR. That's a great change. I don't think any tank should have stock APCR. It just isn't fair. You can hit an ammo rack directly and it won't do anything. It's good to see the M3A3 Dardo and USH being up-tiered as well. The USH was an absolute menace, especially in down tiers. And I don't think I need to explain why the Dardo and M3A3 had to be moved up as well. The Centauro is finally being moved to 8.7 with APF SDS. Most 8.0s are lucky to have either a stabilizer or thermals. The Centauro not only had both, but it also had great mobility. Now back to the negatives. Why do the 2A5 and 2PL need better ammunition? It feels like a knee-jerk reaction to the surge in top-tier Russian win rates. Win rates that occur because experienced players flock to grind the BVM, not because the BVM is overpowered or anything. At that BR, the 2A5 is one of the best armor and smallest weak spots. This was balanced out by giving it less potent ammunition. By giving them ammo on par with other nations, it kinda feels like going back to square one. The 2PL needs it even less than the 2A5. It's basically a side grade to the 2A5, but at a lower BR. And I'm no expert on planes, but why is the F4F early going to 10.3? Its only downside compared to the F4E is its lack of sparrows and countermeasures, which is already accounted for. The F4E is 11.0, and the F4F early is already 10.7, so a plane that has A9Js and 11.0 performance is going to be fighting stuff like this. They're also trying to move a couple MiG-21s to 9.3 again, which would allow them to fight things like sabers. Just an all-around awful idea. For the Type 90s, they're moving from 11.0 to 10.7, which stood out as odd to me. Maybe it's just in preparation for the Type 10, but I had absolutely no issues using them at 11.0. They seem perfectly fine for me. Yeah, they have practically no armor, but the 4-second reload more than makes up for it. For the CV90-120 and Centauro 120, I really don't think they had to be moved to 10.7. I don't have a ton of experience playing either, but when I did, they both seemed incredibly average. Besides thoughts on individual vehicles, there are two main gripes I have with the set of proposed changes. For one, as I stated earlier, it's compressing BRs even further instead of decompressing them. It seems as though Gaijin are mashing a ton of vehicles in the 10.0 BR range, instead of expanding the max BR to 11.3 or 11.7, as they should be doing. For Cold War tanks, the performance disparity is now mind-boggling. It also seems as though they're pushing out these BR changes way too quickly. The last changes went into effect on May 25th, a little more than a month ago. That doesn't seem like nearly enough time to gauge the results, especially given that less than 2 weeks after, a major update was released. Many of these changes seem poorly planned, with the major determining factor being how high of a win rate the vehicle has. I've talked about why it's a bad balancing metric before. If you haven't seen that video, here's a quick breakdown. Basically, win rates can be determined by a myriad of causes that are completely unrelated to the vehicle's performance, whether it be average skill level for a nation, the nations they're paired with, the lineups they have, overpowered vehicles they have to fight, the concentration of up tiers versus down tiers, the maps in rotation, and if the vehicle has utility in events. The last one may be a bit confusing, so let me provide an example. The R3 T20 was notoriously overpowered, yet it didn't see a BR raise for a long time. That was because during events people would use it to rush caps, where they would purposefully die so they get into another match and repeat the process. This obviously brought down the stats a lot, so Gaijin figured the vehicle was fine as it was. Last thing I'll say, I think a lot of overpressure-centric vehicles need to have their battle rings reevaluated. The AVRE and Type 75 SPH are good examples, and that's pretty much all I have to say. As I said earlier, I would like to hear what you guys think of the changes. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.